So I've been tasked with introducing Dan Goleman. And because of the nature of this keynote, that it's at dinner, it's not going to be as long as our usual keynotes. An hour and a half before you get to eat? I don't think so. So it will be short. But that means that my introduction has to be short. Because I was planning to speak about Dan for about 20 minutes, but his talk is going to be 20 minutes. So I have to sort of constrain myself. So probably, Dan is, one person that really does not need an introduction. He is just so well known for transforming the society in profoundly healing ways. He's written many, many books, but the ones that you will know the most are Emotional Intelligence, which is now over 10 years old and is really made a gigantic difference in so many different worlds. And shifting really the bell curve of our thought processes. Also social intelligence, and now ecological intelligence, the subtitle of which is How Knowing the Hidden Impacts of What We Buy Can Change Everything. He's the founder, with a group of marvelous people, of the Consortium Academic Social and Emotional Learning in 1993, which has had a profound effect on schools. And I could just go on, as I said, but I'm not going to, except to say that Dan and I go way, way back together, along with Richie Davidson. I met them both when they were graduate students at Harvard. We embarked together on a study in the electrophysiology lab of a particular yogi. We've been at this a long, 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 long time. And while we each have our own individual karmic threads as they unfold, there's something about the friendship over these years with Dan and with Richie that is just so profoundly moving. And so it just gives me just enormous personal pleasure to have you here this evening, Dan, and to hear from you on the future of mindfulness.
So the fact is that Johnny and I love each other very much and have for a long time.
Will you write me a poem?
You could write me a poem. I'd like to thank all of you, particularly Tussie, Tim, everyone who in this room who has done so much to further this movement, which I think is one of the great hopes for our planet and the people on it. And I also want to share with you a bit more of that secret history that Johnny alluded to. I came to Harvard in 1968 and entered the department which just 5 years before had seen the firing of Tim Leary and Richard Alpert. And my main professor, David McClellan, was the guy who hired and fired them. And he also had an interior life, which he kept a little hidden in the department. He was a Quaker and a meditator, and he was my front man for a pre-doctoral traveling fellowship to India, which was where I met people like Joseph Goldstein and Sharon Salzberg and Jack Kornfield, and came back to do my dissertation on meditation as an intervention in stress reactivity, which was very controversial at the time. In fact, one of my clinical psychology professors took me aside. He said, I wasn't using mindfulness, I was using a mantra meditation. He said, how is someone mentally repeating this sound any different from my obsessive compulsive patients? Okay. That was where things stood. So when I taught as a visiting lecturer after my PhD, taught a course on the psychology of consciousness, which I think Cliff Sarin was a student in, and Richie Davidson was a teaching assistant in. It was clear that was the end of my contract at Harvard, and in fact it was. So when Johnny told me that he had this job to teach mindfulness to patients in the basement at UMass Medical Center, I thought, given the tenor of the times, well, maybe this will tide him over till he gets a real job. And thank God he didn't, because here we all are, and it's been more and more spectacular. First MBSR, and then MBCT, and I just did mindfulness of driving. It's seeping into every part of life, as it should. But I'm going to suggest the next mission. I'm going to talk about the future of mindfulness. I think the next mission for mindfulness is to save us from ourselves. And what I mean is that we live today in what geologists now call the Anthropocene age. The Anthropocene age began with the Industrial Revolution. It's the first time in geological history that the activities of a single species are decaying the 8 biogeochemical systems that support life on the planet. And the dilemma of the Anthropocene age is it's insidious. It's built into our systems of energy and construction and transportation and industry and commerce. We are all complicit and we don't know it. And in fact, there is a terrible design flaw in the human brain, and that is that our alarm system and our perceptual system is attuned to a range of danger that pertain in a different geological age. It's the rustle in the leaves, the growl that we're attuned to, or I guess in modern life, honey, we have to talk. But whatever the danger signals may be. But what we don't notice are the macro and micro changes that are altering the balance of life on the planet. I have to, by the way, thank Mila for giving me the material. It first got me interested in all of this. But the problem is we all live what Ibsen called a vital lie. We all feel that, it's terrible, the planet is slowly decaying, but I don't really have anything to do with it, right? But actually it's, of course, us writ large. And I feel that the antidote will come from the mindfulness community. And I can say that because new tools are emerging that I think if they fit hand in hand with a mindful stance could turn the tide. The first is the emergence of a discipline called industrial ecology. It's new within the last decade. It merges the expertise of industrial designers with chemists and environmental scientists and so on. And it allows us to analyze anything made, this bottle and the water in it, over its entire life cycle, and to understand that at every point in the history of anything made, it has multiple impacts, ecological impacts on the environment, on health, social impacts, and we now, thanks to industrial ecologists, have metrics for that. So if you take the glass in front of you that water is in, an industrial ecologist would say, well, this isn't a product, it's a process. And it began with the extraction of sand and chemicals being made and so on, and it ends when the glass goes to a landfill and doesn't even end then. And we can analyze that life cycle into 1,959 discrete events, discrete steps, each of which can be in turn analyzed for the range of impacts, particulates into air, water, soil, health impacts, and so on. With that data, we have a new math, and that new math gives us new power. So let's say you have a yogurt in the morning and you recycle the container. Everybody recycles here, right? Goes without saying. So how much of the impacts on global warming do you suppose you remediate by recycling your yogurt container? Anyone care to guess? None. It's better than that, but not much better. 5%. So when we do our recycling, it's all well and good, but the real problem is the thing itself and the history of the thing itself. If you buy an organic t-shirt, it's great that it didn't use fertilizer because, of course, they run off and kill water, but this new math makes new complications. Organic cotton is thirstier than other cotton, and the fibers are shorter, so you have to grow more for a t-shirt. And most cotton in the world is grown in arid places. The Aral Sea became a pond because of cotton plantations. So this immerses us in a web of interdependence and interconnectivity that we need to understand better. Take a local tomato. This was a study done in Montreal. Turns out the seeds were developed in France, flown to China, where they were grown and harvested, flown back to France, where they were processed, then flown to Ontario, where they were sprouted, and then trucked to Montreal, where they became local tomatoes. So it's a whole new reality. One of the pieces of math I like the best has to do with a power grid. In the Netherlands, they did a study using a method from public health called the disability adjusted life year. The disability adjusted life year is how many years of life do you lose to disability because of X. So they looked at the impacts on the people in the Netherlands on the pollutants and so on for the power grid, and they weighed that against the people in the 20% of the supply chain of the power grid who lived in the poorest parts of the world. And they saw that the benefit from that income in terms of better food for kids, better education, better health, vastly outweighed the negative impacts on the people in the Netherlands. So this is a math that brings a new kind of compassion, a new way of understanding that our impacts aren't always negative. They can be positive, and they can be helping people in distant, needy places at the same time. So as we open our eyes, how can we use this? And this is where another information system comes in. This is called, the proof of concept is called Good Guide, one word, Good, G-U-I-D-E. It's a website. It's an app on your smartphone. And if your smartphone is really smart, when you're shopping, you can wave it across a barcode of any product, and Good Guide will aggregate for you 300 databases on environmental, health, and social consequences, reduce it to a single score, and instantly compare it to every other product, every other competitive product. There's one for toxicity of chemicals in personal care products. A shampoo can have 50 industrial chemicals. The average woman in this country wears 500 chemicals a day. It's good to know which of those, for example, create mutations in lab rats, which ones you want to avoid and which ones are safe. So skindeep.com will tell you that in the same way. This kind of information, as we're about to make a purchase, is where mindfulness comes in. Because I don't know about you, but I've been practicing mindfulness, I would say on and off, for a long time, since we first met, Johnny. And when I go shopping, it's off, frankly. And if we turned it on, how powerful that could be. Because if we took a moment of impulse inhibition, and instead of reaching for the same thing, stopped, checked the data, and made a comparison, and made a better choice. And not only that, Twittered while we shopped and multiplied the impact of what we just did, we could move the planet if we go to scale. And this is where I think mindfulness can have a powerful new role in helping us all wake up to the hidden impacts of what we do and to change it for the better. Because if we were to do that in large numbers, it would shift market share. That is to say, as products lost business because of something in their supply chain, then it creates a business case, not a law, not a reg, not people picketing, but a strong business case for doing the right thing. And in fact, you win that game by doing the right thing quicker than the other guy. It would create a new market force. And I never thought I would say the word mindfulness in the same sentence as market force, but I'm doing it tonight. Some say the earth needs healing, but you know, the earth is going to survive. It doesn't need healing. We do. Thank you.